Hey, good morning there, you good people. I'm just out and about this morning. I was supposed to make it to work, but I'll talk about why I'm not at work today in just a minute. Hope you all are having a good Christmas season and an end to your year. Hope you all are out with loved ones and whatever and enjoying whatever. And just want to let you all know, maybe in the next few, well, my program's supposed to be back on, God willing, on the 3rd of January, True Sharks Radio, and I invite you to go and check that out and whatever. And that's all I have to say on that. But anyway, sharks in the water. I might not look like it right now, but I'm kind of ticked off. Be honest with you, last night I was really ticked off. And you all know how I feel about, folks talking about Black Lives Matter, and I hope you do. They talk about Black Lives Matter, yet and still black people kill off more black people than anyone else, and things of that sort, and we commit crimes against one another more than anyone else. And over the years, I've watched a lot of videos, police videos and whatever. You hear people saying, well, if a black person and a white person are caught in the same situation, the black person usually ends up dead, but they don't specify why the black person ends up dead. When they get caught by the cops, they just think the police just pull out a gun and say, oh, this is a black person, I'm just going to shoot him. No, it's not that simple. They want you to think it's that simple, but it isn't. But anyway, I had something happen to me last night. I took my wife to work. She's working a part-time job at Target. And yeah, phooey to you, Jamal Bryant, phooey to you. Anyway, I took my wife to work at Target. She has a part-time job. And I got home, and I was just trying to calm down from the rest of the day. I was feeling a little stressed and whatever. And so I was about to, my wife was getting off of work at 12:45 this morning. And just to let you all know, today is Christmas Eve, 2025. And this incident happened last night, which is December 23rd at about 9:45. I'm sitting down watching a little TV, trying to calm down a bit because I was a little bit stressed yesterday. And I get a knock on my door. It's like a frantic knocking. And I'm kind of cautious because it's dark outside and whatever. And I just watched a video about some guys who faked that they were UPS drivers, and they were able to gain entrance into this home and kill several people. I just watched that video less than a day ago. And so I was like, okay, I don't know who this is, why are they knocking on my door? So I heard the frantic knocking again. I said, okay, I'm going to check it out, just take my chances. So I opened the door, and it's the son of my downstairs neighbor. And he's looking just frantic, like, sir, someone just broke into your car. They just busted out your window, and I saw them go down. And I was like, what? And so I look out, because I stay on the second floor, and there was glass on the pavement. And he was telling me, he said, I saw them come over here, and they stopped in front of the mailboxes, and they looked around, and they came, and they went among the other cars, but they broke into your car. And sure enough, they busted the window. And he said, he was pointing down the street. He said, they walked down that way. They went down that way. And so I'm looking down there, and he said, well, I don't think they left that area. They just walked down there, and I think they're still down there. So I was like, okay. So I dialed 911, called the police, and I told them everything. They're asking me, do you have a description? And I said, no, I didn't see the perpetrators. My downstairs neighbor did. And he was like, are they black? Are they white? I was like, I don't know. I didn't see them, But my downstairs neighbor said they had masks on. And so while I'm talking to the dispatcher, I look down the street in the direction where the little hoodlums went, and I see two hooded figures coming back in my direction, just walking, just casually. And they were in hoods and whatever, and they're walking in my direction. And the witness, he saw them and he said, "Those are the guys that broke in. Those are the guys right there. Those are the guys." And so I'm getting frantic, and I'm like, okay. I'm telling the dispatcher, okay, we see the guys. They're coming in my direction. We see them. Can you all get the police out here? Because I want to catch these rascals. And they just kept coming towards me, even though they could plainly see us as plainly as we could see them. And they didn't try to run or try to hide or anything like that. And so I'm getting a little nervous because, really, to be honest with you, I wanted to punch them in the face. But I'm 57 years old, which means I'm not stupid. I ain't know these guys had a knife or a gun or whatever. And so I'm headed back up to my apartment, and I'm talking to the dispatcher, and I'm like, "Can you all send the police now? How long is it going to take?" And they were like, "We got someone coming on the way." And I just happened to turn around. There was a police car right there in front of the driveway. And to my surprise, these rascals kept walking in this direction. The police car was there. They kept walking in our direction. And I told the police officer, "Those are the guys that broke into my vehicle." So the police came up and they said, "Okay, I need you to stop where you are." And the kids, they were about to run. And, you know, they went into the classic line, "I didn't do nothing. I didn't do nothing." So the police officer tackled one of them, and one of them tried to run off, but he was caught by another police officer. And this kid was on the ground, and I'm sitting there just letting them have it. And folks, I don't cuss or anything like that. So I'm when I say I let them have it, I was ticked off. I was like, you just a kid, and you think you're a man, and you making the rest of us look bad, you know. And I was going on my spiel, you know. And I was sitting there saying, you know, I want to hear this Black Lives Matter. They always want to talk about Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. And so they get the kids, and the witness, his apartment has a ring camera on it. And that ring camera has caught people trying to break into our vehicles once before. And he said he couldn't get the footage off of it until his mom came home. And I don't know if she's ever come home or whatever, but we need to get the evidence off of there. But while they were apprehending one of the kids, he was resisting, and he was like, "I didn't do nothing, you know." And he has him on the ground, you know, he's struggling and everything, and he checks him and whatever, he frisks him, and they put him in the car, put both of them in the car. And I told the police officers, I said, just to let you all know, yes, I'm pressing charges. They said, "Oh, you ain't got to worry about that because they broke into your car, you know." That, and he said we got the they had a glass breaking tool. They had a glass breaking tool, and that's how they broke into my window. And I don't keep a lot of valuables in my car, you know. I just don't, you know. Some people do that. I don't know why. They'll leave money and stuff in their car. I don't do that. But the most valuable thing in my car was my laundry, because I'm going out to wash today, and I was hoping to do it after work, not at this time. But that's why I can't go to work today, because I had to get the window fixed. They said it was going to cost me a little more than $400 to get it fixed, which ticks me off even further, because I'm like, I didn't invite these guys to break into my vehicle. My vehicle was locked. It was locked, and they still broke in and I drive a Hyundai Tucson. But they were, the police apprehended them and put them in the cars and everything. And, I was talking to one of them, and, well, I called my wife and I told her what had happened. And I said, these kids look like they're about 15, 16 years old. Well, it turns out I was off by some years. These kids were 11, listen to me, 11 and 13 years old. Now, here it is, 2 days before Christmas. 2 days before Christmas. Cold as all get up last night. What is an 11-year-old and a 13-year-old doing just walking the streets? That's a parent problem. An 11 and a 13-year-old just walking the streets. Why are they out on the streets as cold as it was 2 days before Christmas? And they decide to break into someone's vehicle. That's what ticks me off. And not only that, but after after some time, I saw they uncuffed one of the kids, took him out of the car, uncuffed him, and he walked back with somebody else. I think it was his mother. And they just casually strolled off to the car, got in the car, turned around, drove off. The mother didn't even look in my direction. Didn't say, hey, who's the guy whose car got broken into? You're going to apologize to this man. None of that. Just, the boy was put in her custody. She didn't fuss at him or anything. They just got in the car, drove off. And I was like, that's the problem right there. Parents not being parents. Now, I remember in my day, if that had been me and my parents got wind of it, well, let's just say my mom is left-handed and my dad, I think he used to choke gorillas for a living. I'm just adding some humor to this because, this is one of the ways that helped to calm me down and everything. But in my day, I would have gotten my skin ripped off. My parents probably would have skinned me alive and used that skin to make some wallets. But no apology or any, and I'm not a person, if you do me wrong, I'm not a person who looks for an apology. I don't. But in this situation, there was no courtesy or anything. It's just, oh, okay, come on, son. I guess she figured, oh, it's 2 days before Christmas. I don't want to ruin his Christmas. Well, he somewhat ruined mine because I got to pay $400 for my window. He gets to go home, but I had to pay $400 to get my window fixed, which I can handle the $400. But this is the reason why I think they need to stop. And I'm just going to say, this is my opinion. Now, you might disagree. That's fine. But I think they need to stop playing kid gloves with these youths, with these young people. Stop blurring their faces when you do a news story about them or anything like that. Stop, saying, well, because they are juveniles, we're not going to mention their names. I think that needs to come to a stop. And not only that, I think the pressure needs to be put on the parents. Because my wife, when she came in last night, she saw the glass on the pavement and everything. My wife told me, said, they're going to do it again. I said, yeah. Yeah, they're going to do it again. They get to go home with mama, but I got to fix a window. And they'll probably do it again. Their parents probably won't say anything to them. And then when something does happen to them, the mama's like, oh, my baby, my baby. Well, where's that sentiment when you were raising your baby? Where's that sentiment? You fail as a parent. Your child meets the negative consequences of that failure. And then all of a sudden it's somebody else's fault but yours. You didn't do your job. First of all, you got these girls going around sleeping with every Tom, Dick, and Harry. And then they get pregnant. And then there's no father in the house. And you raise these kids on your own. And these kids don't have a guiding fixture in their lives, in their family. And these kids grow up, 9 times out of 10, they grow up to be little hoodlums. And then when they get caught up in the dirt, oh, he's a good kid. No, he is not. He is a rotten kid. He's a spoiled, rotten kid. Your kids are bad. You know, I know people might come at me with the, oh, no, don't speak that. You know, death and life are in the power of the tongue. Look, bump that. These kids are bad. And us speaking positive over them is not making them much better. It's not making them good at all. And stuff like this ticks me off. It does. It really does. I'm not going to sit here and pretend and act like it doesn't tick me off. It does. And I know some of you all might be out there, oh, I thought you were Christian. You need to calm down. You calm down. It's time we bring the hammer down on these juveniles. And one of the main reasons why we don't is because they're black. Both these kids were black. One of the main reasons why we don't bring the hammer down on these kids is because race plays a factor. Oh, we don't want to come down too hard on them because they might think we're racist. Let them think you're racist. Let them think you're racist. I don't care. I was ticked off. I was like, if the police officer said, Mr. Brown, you know what? We're just going to lay off. We're going to lay off of them and you can have your way with them. I'm afraid of what I probably would have done. Because these kids were tiny. They were skinny. My wife probably could have beat them up. And my wife is not a violent person. But if they had told me that, I probably would need it. I probably would have needed prayer, because one of the things I don't like when you work hard to keep up something and whatever. You know, you work hard, you pay your bills, you know, you do the right thing and whatever, and then some knucklehead wants to come and disrupt your life. They feel like they have the right to your stuff that they don't work for. It ticks me off. It really does. And then, you know, the powers that be say, well, you know, if a criminal comes, they point a gun at you and they demand your money, give them the money. No, it shouldn't be that simple. It shouldn't be that simple. This is my money. I work for it. And then you get these folks that, you know, want to talk about getting rid of guns and all that and everything. We got to reduce gun crime. And y'all come up with all these gun laws. And people still get shot and killed. Ever, you know, where's the common sense here, you know? But they'll tell the rest of us, no, you don't need a gun. The police can only respond. But if I catch you, you know, I can deal with you right then and there. But, you know, this morning I had to go and, you know, I was concerned about, because I got the hole in my window and I had to go to Safe Light and they put a piece of plastic over it, you know, until they can fix my window, which I'm grateful for that. They came in, they vacuumed my car and everything. So they didn't get away with anything. They didn't steal anything. It was like they just broke in. And the witness told me, he said it looked like they pulled something out. I don't know what they may have pulled out, because I got a basketball here. They didn't even take it. And my wife said, well, they probably dropped their glass breaking tool and he reached in to get it and that's what he pulled out, you know. But we'll see on on the Ring video. But folks, I believe we need to start prosecuting these juveniles. If they want to act grown, let's give them a little piece of adulthood. You want to commit an adult crime, we're going to treat you like one. When last night when the kid went with his mom, I went up to the police. I said, they're just letting him go. I said, yeah, he's a juvenile. And I think they said they were going to file a juvenile injunction or something like that against them, or whatever. I think that's what he said, a juvenile injunction. But all they're going to do, slap them on the wrist. No, these kids need to be taught a lesson. Because today they're breaking into a 57-year-old man's vehicle. One day they're gonna mess with the wrong person. And then everyone's gonna be like, oh, they didn't have to do that. They didn't have to do that. Just last week, I revisited an incident. I revisited an incident that occurred here in Durham, North Carolina in 1993, March of 1993. It involved a kid I was very familiar with. His name was Jamal Elliott. Jamal Elliott was very disruptive. He was very disrespectful. And I remember I was working in the Christian Academy down here, and this was Jamal Elliott's first day at that Christian Academy. I was working as a substitute teacher, and this boy was so disrespectful. I had to keep him in for recess and everything. And I even seen him fighting with teachers. Very disrespectful. Now, he had an uncle. His uncle passed away some years ago, but his uncle used to be a pastor of a church here in Durham. And his uncle said, oh, he's a good kid. Jamal Elliott was not a good kid. He was a bad kid. He was a very bad kid. And so some years later, I'm working in the Research Triangle Park area, and someone came, pick me up, take me home, and they said, did you all hear about Jamal Elliott? I was like, nah, we ain't hear about Jamal Elliott. What happened with Jamal Elliott? I was probably thinking, oh, he's probably going to prison or something because he probably done something. No, Jamal Elliott got gunned down. Because he and some of his friends from the high school, they decided to go up the road about a few miles, probably not even a few miles, maybe a mile and a half, into this subdivision in Durham called Woodcroft. And Woodcroft has all the expensive houses and everything. He and his little friends decided to go in there, decided to break into this man's garage. And I think they were there to steal some golf clubs. Jamal Elliott was 15 years old when this happened. They decided to go in there to steal the golf clubs. But what they did not know was that man had been home that day because he had an infant that was sick. And so he was home. His name was Michael Seagroves, the owner of the house. So he hears this commotion going on in his garage. And so he arms himself. I don't even know what kind of gun he had, but I think it was a rifle, a high-powered rifle. He hears this commotion going on in his garage, and then he goes into his garage, sees these little hoodlums breaking into his garage. They see him, and they were probably surprised, like, oh, this dude's home. So they started running. He started shooting. He started sprinkling them with pepper. and he hit two of them. One kid got grazed in the head, but Jamal Elliott, the good little kid, he got hit 4 times. He received a bullet each, a bullet apiece for his lungs. One bullet entered his left lung, one bullet entered his right lung, and he got hit 2 more times. And Jamal Elliott dropped dead. When it hit the news, a lot of people were like, Michael Seagroves needs to be convicted of murder because those kids were running away. And my former pastor, he said them kids were way down the street, and he started shooting at them way down the street. I don't think he would have hit Jamal Elliott 4 times if Jamal Elliott was way down the street. But my pastor said, that was cold-blooded murder. It was cold-blooded murder. It was cold-blooded murder. And people in the black community, they were like, why did he have to shoot? He didn't have to shoot. He didn't have to shoot him. And people in the white community were like, yeah, he should have been shot. But see, they make it like it was, because Jamal Elliott was a black kid. That's why he got shot by this white guy. And they said, certain people in the certain powers that be, they wouldn't take up the case because, they were white and he was black. But the thing that is lost in the black community about all this was, why was Jamal Elliott and those boys there in the first place? Why were they there? They were supposed to be in school. But they decided to skip school to break into a man's house. And Jamal Elliott was one of those impressionable types. He wanted to be like the big dogs and everything. But the big dog got shot and killed. The little dog got shot and killed. And I was even reading an article at that time. This is 1993. This is 32 years ago. I remember reading an article, and of course, Jamal Elliott, because of his behavioral problems, they took him to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist said, Jamal, if you don't stop your way of living, if you don't stop the direction that you're going into, you're going to end up getting shot. And that's exactly what happened to him. But we in the black community, he was just a boy. He was a good boy. He was no, he was not. No, he wasn't a good boy. Now, his father had a stroke, so Jamal was staying with his uncle, the one that said he was a good boy. He wasn't. He was very disruptive, very disrespectful. You couldn't tell him anything. And since then, the sentiment the sentiment with these juveniles has gotten worse. It's gotten worse. I've seen stories where some kids will break into a house and they'll start shooting at the tenants or the residents of the house. And then the resident returns fire, might kill a few of them. And then people are like, you didn't have to shoot him. Well, what was he supposed to do? Sit there and let them shoot him? Oh, just let them go in and steal whatever. Go in, steal the man's hard-earned materials, go in, steal his TV, whatever and everything, and then pull a gun out and just shoot somebody. Just let them have the run. And we, the police, will deal with it. No, you won't. Because a lot of times these guys get away. They get away every single time. And for those of you all who say black folks don't get away with the same crimes white folks do, you need to shut up. Just shut up. Just shut up. Because I've been seeing, just this year alone, I've been seeing cases of black folks who've been let off for severe crimes. several times. And then they end up murdering someone. The girl in Charlotte who got murdered by the black guy. That man had been arrested 13, 14 times. He should never have been out on the street. Another case of a kid got killed. He was stabbed in the head 6 times. The guy that killed him, another black guy, I think he would have been arrested 70 times or something like that. I might be getting the numbers mixed up because there's so many. So when you all come out here and you say, oh, black people don't get away with the same crimes white people do. You know, when white people commit a crime, they take them to Burger King. Shut up. You're stupid. You're stupid. All you had to do is peruse the internet and you'll see that there are a lot of black people who get away with their crimes, and these crimes are severe. And I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe the main reason why these black people keep getting away with these crimes is because people don't want to be seen as being racist. We got too many black people in prison. Well, if you don't want a lot of black people in prison, this is one thing you need to do. Tell them to stop committing crimes. Like I said, I'm 57 years old. I have never gone to jail for anything, never been arrested. From October the 16th, 1968, until today, December 24, 2025, I have never been arrested or incarcerated. Now, what does that tell you? Don't get me wrong. There might be some black people in jail who don't belong there. But keep in mind, there are probably some Hispanics who don't belong there. There are probably some white folk that don't belong there. There are probably some Asians who don't belong there. This is not a race problem. But it just seems certain people of a certain race, they seem to commit most of the crimes, most of the violent crimes. And that's why they end up in jail. I was listening to listening to something on YouTube. They were talking about, the crack epidemic and, the crack cocaine. And they just did that because, they wanted to put more black people in jail and stuff like that. And I'm like, y'all stupid. You all do know there were black people that approved of that measure of criminalizing those in possession of crack cocaine. It was not a racist thing. But here's the thing, though. If you don't want to go to jail for using crack, don't use crack. I didn't use it. I never used cocaine, crack. I never so much as smoked marijuana. I don't like any of that stuff. And guess what? The police didn't say, hey, and y'all see how I like to rock my hoodies. I like to wear hoodies. Hey, that guy looks like a criminal. Let's bust him up and put him in jail. Never had that happen. Never had the police to lie on me and say, they say, yeah, we found him with drugs in it. See, I reached into his pocket. He got drugs in there. I never had that happen. But to hear the black leaders, the so-called black leaders, talk about this and everything, that happens to every black person. If you're a black person, the police are going to target you. And don't get me wrong, there are racist police officers out there. I'm pretty sure of that. You're not, one thing you need to understand, you're not going to get rid of racism. It's not going anywhere. You can sit there and, put stop racism in the end zone of your football games and stuff like that, but you're not going to stop racism. Racism is here to stay, and you just need to live with it. Now, when it shows up its ugly head, yeah, you deal with it then, but you still have to live with it. You're not going to stop racism. Every country you go into is going to have its pocket of racists. Every country you go into, even the African countries. So when, people say, oh, they're out to get us, the white police officers, those police officers last night, I forget how many, it was at least 6 of them, might have been as many as 8. But all but one of them was white, and the exception, he looked like he was Hispanic, but he could have passed off as a white man too. All of them, and they were just as cordial with me, and I was just as cordial with them. So y'all stop it with this race baiting and everything, because what you're doing, you're really killing off yourselves when you do that, because now people are like, oh, we don't want to touch the black folks. Let's play with them with kid gloves. Let's give them a lesser sentence. Let's give them a good plea deal. Now, they don't just do this with black folks. They do it with everybody. And to me, a criminal is a criminal. But I have to state the facts. The people who get caught up in crime, a lot more than usual, are black folks. And you can sit there and say, oh, you hate being black. You can say that all you want to. You hate being black. You hate yourself. You're an Uncle Ruckus. You're an Oreo. I've had people do me like that. And all you're doing is strengthening my resolve. That's all you're doing. You're not intimidating me. I'm not intimidated of you. I'm not going to stop my message because it offends you. Because you're offended by the truth. But let's call a spade a spade. But that's what I've been through past several hours and everything. My wife is home from work. I was supposed to be at work. And I hate the fact that I didn't make it to work today, because I had my day planned out, things I had to do on the job. See, when I go to my job, I plan out in my head, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I had it all planned out today. And last night I realized, I said, well, maybe I can just go to work with the hole in my window. I said, you know what? Nah, because it's Christmas season and I might not get things fixed until, Christmas season is over. Fortunately, Friday, I'm going to get my window fixed. That's going to be it. And they said they'll give me a payment plan and everything. But I'm still ticked off that this kid can go home and he doesn't have to pay anything, really. And I don't know how this is going forward. I don't know how they do this, but I told the police officers, I said, yeah, I want to press charges. And he said, oh, we already got that. We got the weapon that he broke into your car with. What is an 11 and 13-year-old doing with a glass breaking tool? That's another thing. What are they doing with a glass breaking tool? And the kids were sitting there talking about, I didn't do it. I swear to God. They always do that. And see, I'm familiar with this because I see a ton of these videos on YouTube. I see a ton of them, and they make the same excuses. And in a way, I was hoping these were not the kids. But when they found that glass breaking tool, how many kids just gonna randomly walk up the street and they have a glass breaking tool in their pocket? No. That's incriminating evidence right there. But like I said, I don't know how this is going to go forward, if I might have to go to court or whatever. But once I get the evidence from my neighbor's ring camera, I'm hopefully we'll get that to the police. And yes, I'm pressing charges. I'm pressing charges. And, I don't want to hear no parents talking about, oh, he's a good kid. I don't want to hear that, because good kids don't walk in cold weather